Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're doing something really exciting. We are taking thousands of words of ancient biblical poetry and instruction, stuff from Job, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Psalms, James, and 1 Corinthians, and we're synthesizing the whole shebang into a clear, structured framework on the concept of wisdom. If you've ever found these writings dense or kind of hard to navigate, well, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to map out exactly what these texts claim about human knowledge, divine insight, and ultimately how we're supposed to live our lives. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's dive into this. The book of Job actually asks this exact foundational question. Where can wisdom be found? Where does understanding dwell? It's really the core dilemma of the human experience, isn't it? And it's the specific question we are going to answer today using these ancient texts. So rather than reading these nonlinear texts chronologically, we're organizing these sprawling writings into a clear thematic roadmap. We'll cover the search for meaning, the value of wisdom, human versus divine understanding, wisdom in action, and finally, the two paths. All right, let's start right off with Section 1, the search for meaning, or chasing the wind. The text sets up human existence as a deeply frustrating problem when tackled without divine insight. Think about it. We are incredibly driven creatures, right? But our drives often lead to complete emptiness. Just look at this powerful quote. The writer of Ecclesiastes describes undertaking these massive projects. We're talking amassing wealth, buying huge properties, planting vineyards, and basically pursuing every single pleasure his eyes desired. He achieved a level of success most people literally only dream of. Yet, when he surveyed all his earthly achievements, it felt totally hollow. He calls it all, quote, meaningless, a chasing after the wind. And this brilliantly illustrates a profound contrast made in Job chapter 28. It highlights humanity's exhaustive search for physical treasures versus our complete inability to locate wisdom on our own. The text describes mortals tunneling into the blackest darkness, dangling from ropes far from human dwellings, just to mine silver and gold. I mean, we have the human ingenuity to literally tear apart mountains. But when asked, where does understanding dwell? The sea says, it is not with me. Despite all our vast wealth and effort, the text argues that true wisdom simply cannot be bought with pure gold. That brings us to Section 2, the value of wisdom, more precious than rubies. Because if human effort can't buy wisdom, the source material has to provide an alternative definition, right? So the crucial point is right here on this slide. If human ingenuity and all the money in the world can't buy wisdom, what actually is it? Well, these texts collectively define true wisdom not as having a super high IQ or philosophical eloquence. It's something entirely different. According to both Job 28 and Proverbs 1, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom, and to shun evil is understanding. It's about a deep, profound reverence for God and a strict, intentional avoidance of evil. And when you adopt that specific definition, the rewards are absolutely immense. Proverbs frames this kind of wisdom as the ultimate asset. We're talking yielding better returns than gold and silver, offering long life and honor, and acting as a literal tree of life to those who take hold of her. Plus, get this, Proverbs states that by this exact wisdom, the earth's foundations were laid. So wisdom isn't just some self-help tool here. It's presented as the very fabric of the universe itself, predating the earth and offering profound practical benefits to anyone who holds on to it. Moving right along to Section 3, human versus divine understanding, or the foolishness of the world. Here is where the texts aggressively contrast human logic with God's perspective. In Job chapter 38, after Job has spent chapters upon chapters questioning his intense suffering, God finally speaks out of a storm. And he doesn't offer some comforting philosophical debate. Instead, he completely humbles humanity with this massive rhetorical question. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me, if you understand. Just let the weight of that sit for a second. The text continues with this rapid-fire interruption of human pride. God asks Job if mortals can give orders to the morning, or if they can enter the storehouses of the snow, or bind the chains of the stars. It utterly dwarfs human intellect. The message is loud and clear. Our human perspective is incredibly narrow, while divine understanding spans the entire cosmos. It really puts our daily human anxieties into perspective, doesn't it? And if we look at the New Testament, 1 Corinthians chapters 1 and 2 double down on this exact idea. The text makes the bold claim that the rulers and philosophers of this age are coming to nothing, that their wisdom is merely earthly. It argues that what the world considers foolishness, the foolishness of God, is infinitely wiser than human wisdom, and his weakness is stronger than any human strength. The text impartially states that God deliberately chooses what the world looks down upon to shame the wise. All right, let's shift gears a bit into Section 4, Wisdom in Action, the Tongue and the Heart. We're transitioning from the philosophical awe of God's wisdom down to the gritty, practical instructions laid out in the book of James. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this incredibly powerful metaphor from James 3. It points out that humans can tame wild reptiles, birds, and sea creatures, but we find it nearly impossible to tame our own words. It compares the tongue to a small spark that sets a massive forest on fire. Actually, think about that the next time you're tempted to send an angry text or a regrettable tweet. It's a sobering reminder of the destructive power of human speech and a massive call for profound self-control. The text is also deeply analytical when it comes to human failure. In fact, James 1 outlines this exact mechanical progression of destruction. First, a person is dragged away by their own evil desire. Step 2, they are enticed. Third, that desire conceives and gives birth to sin. And finally, when sin is full grown, it gives birth to death. Notice how the text doesn't blame God for temptation. It squarely places the mechanics of failure right on unchecked human desires. So how do we actually counter that progression? Well, James 3 provides this checklist of heavenly wisdom. The text demands that truly wise people prove their understanding not through boasting, but through deeds done in humility. Look at these traits: pure, peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy, impartial, and sincere. It's an intensely practical, action-oriented definition. Truism has to actually change how you treat the people around you every single day. Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, the two paths, wisdom versus folly. Because ultimately, all of this source material distills human existence down to a binary choice, with the highest possible stakes. Let's see how this builds the narrative tension. Proverbs 9 brilliantly personifies both wisdom and folly as two hosts calling out in the streets to the exact same people. Wisdom builds a house, sets a beautiful table, and offers life and insight to the simple, telling them to leave their naive ways and live. Folly, on the flip side, is depicted as an unruly, loud woman sitting at the highest point of the city, seductively claiming that stolen water is sweet. But the text sharply warns that folly's guests have no idea they are heading deep into the realm of the dead. You can see the visual contrast right here on this slide. Psalms 1 and Proverbs 4 describe the wildly divergent destinies of the people walking these two paths. Those who accept instruction and fear the Lord are like a tree planted by streams of water that prospers, or like the morning sun shining ever brighter until the full light of day. Conversely, those who walk with mockers are like chaff that the wind just blows away. They are walking in a deep darkness where they don't even know what is making them stumble. So, we've synthesized a massive amount of ancient poetry and direct instruction today into this structured roadmap. We've seen that human wealth can't buy understanding, that true wisdom begins with reverence for the divine, and that this wisdom absolutely must manifest in our daily actions and our words. The biblical text presents human existence as a stark, unavoidable choice between the house of wisdom and the trap of folly. So, based on the framework of these ancient texts we just explored, which path will you choose to walk?